Hey, what is happening, guys? What's going on at YouTube? You have tuned into Rules for Rebels. I actually got this article from my buddy Tommy. Tommy is a viewer of the channel, and he had sent this article over. He said, hey, I thought you'd find this article interesting. It's about, kind of how Amazon can screw you over selling on Amazon and Amazon Prime, and kind of the dirty dealings of other sellers, and to what lengths other sellers are willing to go and even do very unethical things to get your listings taken down, even going as far as to buy your item, set it on fire, and then tell Amazon that your item caught on fire and try to get you taken off for dangerous goods. When I was at eCom Chicago back in October, they actually did a whole segment about all the dirty stuff that Amazon sellers do. And a lot of times it's the Chinese sellers, although in fairness, it is everybody across the board. But a lot of times it's these Chinese manufacturers and sellers. But man, some of the stuff that people would do, people will actually... there's kind of a loophole where you can kind of game something with the Copyright and Patent Office, and people are basically changing the contact email on a company's patent and then redirecting it to them. People will buy other people's products and damage them and then tell Amazon that the product is unsafe. People will go to some pretty crazy lengths to screw over the competition. And as you can imagine, if you have a business on Amazon and this happens to you, it can be detrimental to your business. It can get you knocked off Amazon and not able to sell on Amazon. It can also, even if it's just for a couple weeks, potentially you're missing out on hundreds or even thousands of dollars worth of sales. Now, Tommy, buddy, thank you for sending me this article. I think I had actually, there were two similar articles I had found recently and I was meaning to make videos on, and they kind of got lost in my inbox. So I'm sitting here today. I'm kind of putting some other projects to the side and starting to go through my email. A lot of times when I find interesting articles or when people send me interesting articles, I kind of use my email box as a little kind of reminder, and a lot of times it just gets filled. So today I'm going to spend the first half of the day just kind of cranking out articles that I'm going to post over the course of the next month or so. And also, if you guys send me emails with something to share on the channel, let me know if you want me to, or if you mind if I share your name or anything like that. I know some people really want their privacy respected, and other people just kind of want to kind of be part of the community. So I'll always feel free to drop a message. I figure Tommy doesn't mind if I call him Tommy, but he did put his last name. I just wanted to leave that out unless he wanted. So let me know when you guys send me emails if you're open to me sharing the stories that you send or whatever else. So anyhow, this article comes from The Verge. It's titled "Prime and Punishment: The Dirty Dealing in $175 Billion Amazon Marketplace." Jeff Baum, you emailed Jeff, the richest person in the world. He didn't respond. That's kind of funny. So this article comes to us from Josh DeZiza. Last August, Zach Planksky woke to find that the rifle scopes he was selling on Amazon had received 16 5-star reviews overnight. Usually that would be a good thing, but the reviews were strange. The scope would normally get a single review a day, and many of these referred to a different scope as if they'd been cut and pasted from elsewhere. I didn't know what was going on, whether it was a glitch or somebody was trying to mess with us, Planksy says. Now, here's one of the dirty dealings of Amazon. Way back in the early days of Amazon, or really to the average person, you might think, well, if I want to sabotage somebody's business, I'm going to leave them a bunch of negative reviews, right? A bunch of 1-star reviews. Why would you want to leave your competitor 5-star reviews? Well, Amazon realizes and has dealt with issues over the years of people buying and selling reviews, giving away products, giving free products away for reviews. And this is a pretty serious issue, not only because it kind of affects the authenticity and the genuineness of Amazon reviews and makes them not trustworthy, but also there's some kind of FTC guidelines that get in the way when people start buying fake reviews and things like that. So in addition to leaving a competitor bad reviews, one way to potentially tank a competitor is to buy them a bunch of positive reviews, and then Amazon says, well, this person's trying to game the system. We got to knock off their account, and you wind up getting taken down for somebody else buying you positive reviews. As a precaution, he reported the reviews to Amazon, and anytime you notice something out of the ordinary on Amazon, make sure to report it. It's better to come to them, and that way you may still run into issues, but at least that way you can say, Amazon, look, I'm noticing this. I didn't do it. I just wanted to bring this to your attention, and that way if there is any backlash, you kind of got ahead of it. Most of them vanished days later, problem solved, and Planksy re-immersed himself into the work of running a 6-employee, multi-million-dollar weapons accessory business on Amazon. Then 2 weeks later, the trap sprang. You have manipulated product reviews on our site, an email from Amazon read. This is against our policies. As a result, you may no longer be able to sell on Amazon.com, and your listings have been removed from our site. Now, this is probably something that you guys have run into as well. This guy did everything in his power that he could, right? He noticed something happened. He was watching his reviews. He brought it to the attention of Amazon just like he should. Amazon understandably knew about this, but because there's so many products and so many sellers on Amazon, Amazon can't possibly keep up with everybody with humans. So they use a lot of algorithms and bots and things like that. And these things can't really distinguish things, or maybe they don't know that, what's this guy's name? Planksy contacted Amazon customer support. So his product still wound up being taken down. His account was suspended. A rival had framed Planksy for buying 5-star reviews. A high crime in the world of Amazon. The funds in his account were immediately frozen and his listings were shut down. Getting his store back would take him on a surreal weeks-long journey through Amazon's bureaucracy, one that began with the click of a button of his suspension message that read, "Appeal decision." Now, at one point, Amazon shut down my account for something similar. They held, I think it was $48,000 of me and my business partner's money. I contacted them. I would get nothing but form letters back. They removed the button on the bottom of my Amazon account that would allow me to call them. And technically speaking, I don't think legally they can hold your money for longer than 11 days. Amazon is what's called a money transmitter, and money transmitters cannot hold your money for over 11 days. PayPal violates this too, holding money for 21 days in many instances. But despite trying to call Amazon over and over, it wasn't until about 90 days. Finally, I just gave up. And they said after 90 days, the money will be released. I'm like, what? After so many attempts, I just gave up. I actually called one law firm out of Washington that I had used on another case for business before. And I said, hey, could you help me out with this? I figured they're in the Washington area. And you know what they told me? They said, we're actually on retainer for Amazon. We can't help you. So they already worked for Amazon, so they couldn't help me out. And I imagine probably a lot of law firms in that area are probably tied up working for Amazon or have conflicts of interest and can't work for you. So anyhow, I finally just gave up. I knew after 90 days I'd get the money back. We didn't really need the money at the moment. 90 days goes by, 93 days. They still haven't released my money. I finally wind up writing handwritten letters or typing out letters and signing them and sending physical letters to Jeff Bezos himself, the Amazon corporate offices, executive offices. And finally, somebody got in touch with me. They released my $48,000. They never told me what it was about or why they held the money. And they turned my account back on and left me active, which leads me to believe the money was really held for no reason and it was just kind of a glitch. Let's take a look at these key findings real quick. Amazon's marketplace, the company's third-party platform, has almost twice the sales as Amazon Retail, and it's growing far faster. So more items on Amazon are being sold by third-party sellers like you and I than are actually being selling on Amazon. Getting suspended from the platform can have severe financial repercussions for sellers and land them in a bewildering appeal system. The suspension process has given rise to an industry of consultants who specialize in writing Amazon appeals and getting sellers back on the platform. And when I was at eCom Chicago, they had like 3 different people. I'm sure there's hundreds of them, but they had 3 different people just there giving presentations, talking about Amazon, people who have businesses helping people get past Amazon suspensions. The suspension process has given rise to an industry of, okay, we talked about that. Sellers use Amazon's own rules against each other, devising intricate schemes to get their rivals suspended. Schemes include buying fake 5-star reviews for their competitors, filing false intellectual property reports, reclassifying their rivals' listings in unrelated categories, and tampering with trademark files at the patent office. That's what I was referring to earlier. There's a black market for internal Amazon data on customers and sellers, seller accounts, and reinstatement. So a lot of Amazon sellers, I think I maybe covered a story about this a while back. A lot of Amazon sellers actually have insiders at Amazon who, they're not allowed to do this, but who steal Amazon data and sell it to third-party sellers. And there's a lot of money to be made on Amazon. And if you're an Amazon employee, probably making shit pay, that could probably be attractive that you could contact some Chinese manufacturer and sell them data. So when you buy something on Amazon, the odds are you aren't buying it from Amazon at all. Planksy is one of 6 million sellers on Amazon Marketplace. The company's third-party platform, they are largely hidden from customers, but behind any item for sale, there could be dozens of sellers all competing for your click. This year, Marketplace sales were almost double those of Amazon Retail itself, according to Marketplace Pulse, making the seller platform alone one of the largest e-commerce businesses in the U.S. For sellers, Amazon is a quasi-state. They rely on its infrastructure, its warehouses, shipping networks, financial systems, and portal to millions of customers, and pay taxes in the form of fees. They also live in terror of its rules, which often change and are harshly enforced. A cryptic email like the one Planksy received can send a seller's business into bankruptcy with few avenues for appeal. Sellers are more worried about a case being opened on Amazon than an actual court, says Dave Bryant, an Amazon seller and blogger. Amazon's judgment is swifter and less predictable, and now that the company controls nearly half of online retail market in the U.S., its rulings can instantly determine the success or failure of your business, he says. Amazon is the judge, jury, and executioner. And this is one of the reasons to not build a business reliant on Amazon. Obviously, Amazon may wind up being a big part of your business. It may be a big driver of your sales, but way too many people build businesses for the sole purpose of selling on Amazon. And even if you're doing everything by the book, even if you have a great quality product, you offer good customer service, you follow all the rules, if you start competing in an area and somebody else gets jealous or sees that you're having success or somebody else lacks ethics, it's very easy for them to get your listing taken down and really destroy your business. So, well, it would suck for anybody having their Amazon business taken down. If you have Shopify, if you have eBay, if you have Etsy, if you have other channels, at least 100% of your income isn't gone when things like this happen. Amazon is far from the only tech company that having annexed a vast sphere of human activity finds itself in a position of having to govern it. But Amazon is the only platform that has a $175 billion prize pool tempting people to game it, and the company must constantly implement new rules and penalties, which in turn become tools for new abuses, which require yet even more rules to police. The evolution of its moderation system has been hypercharged, while Mark Zuckerberg mused recently that Facebook might need an analog to the Supreme Court to adjudicate disputes and hear appeals. Amazon already has something like a judicial system, one that is secret, volatile, and often terrifying. Now, one interesting thing about Amazon and really any platform, if you kind of start to understand how the algorithm works and how they run things, you can really game the system. Now, this is something, we'll call it black hat, we'll have it gray hat. I game the shit out of all these systems. The one thing that I don't do, however, is I don't do anything that affects other people. So I'm not going to say that I buy reviews. I'm not going to say that I buy my own products, that I use communities of people on social media sites to kind of game systems for me. I wouldn't admit to doing that, but all the things that I do benefit myself. They aren't really at the cost to other people's business. So I, call it gray hat. I have no problems with people doing gray hat things as long as you're not affecting somebody else's business. That's just kind of my take on this. But if you understand how these platforms work, you can kind of game the system. With any of these platforms, if you're able to kind of spike your sales, spike your customers, that's going to jolt you into their, search rankings and their search algorithms. And once you're there, you're normally going to stay there. But there are some kind of unethical people or people who aren't worried about trashing somebody else's business. And if they understand these rules, they can screw you over and further launch their business. Amazon's judgments are so severe that its own rules have become the ultimate weapon in the constant warfare of the marketplace. Sellers devise all manners of intricate schemes to frame their rivals, as Planksy experienced. They impersonate, copy, deceive, threaten, sabotage, and even bribe Amazon employees for information on their competitors. There were some recent articles on that. That was a pretty big stir up at Amazon. And what's a seller to do when they end up in Amazon court? They can turn to someone like Cynthia Stine. And actually, the Cynthia Stine right here, she was actually one of the speakers at eCom Chicago. She actually gave a pretty interesting speech. I think if you check out my Instagram, I think I have some Instagram pictures of her up speaking and some of her slides, who is part of a growing industry of consultants who help sellers navigate the ruthless world of marketplace and the Byzantine rules of rules by which Amazon governs it. They're like lawyers, only their legal code is the Amazon terms of service. Their court is a secretive and semi-automated corporate bureaucracy, and their jurisdiction is an algorithmically pleased global bazaar, rife with devious plots to hijack listings for novelty socks and plastic watches. People like Stine are fixers, guides to the cutthroat land of Amazon, who are willing to give their assistance to the desperate for a price, of course. And again, she was one of the speakers at eCom Chicago. Stine runs a 25-person company out of the den of her one-story house in a leafy neighborhood of East Dallas. Each day sitting before dual monitors and jotting notes on her tablet, she takes calls from distraught sellers who have received the dreaded email from Amazon. On her walls, photos of her family and families of her support staff in the Philippines, a pegboard with packaging tape and shipping labels, vestiges of her past life as an Amazon seller, and a sign that says coffee until it's time for wine. Now, one interesting thing about this, I often talk about how Amazon isn't really the great place that it was a couple years ago. It used to be a lot easier to make money on Amazon. You didn't really have all these dirty dealings. The policies weren't as strict. I think Amazon has gone downhill in a lot of senses. I think it's become a lot more challenging to sell on the platform. I think in many cases, Amazon is making a lot more money than the sellers. And oftentimes we talk about people who are selling pickaxes and shovels instead of actually selling on Amazon. The old kind of adage to the gold rush, when the people who always made money were the people selling supplies, the people actually digging for gold. Well, a few struck it rich, not all of them did. So I think it's interesting that here we have Stine, a woman who used to be an Amazon seller, who has decided it's probably more profitable to use her expertise that she gained as a seller to help other sellers as opposed to wading into this murky world of Amazon herself. She's outgoing and cheerful, happy to digress into war stories about the time an algorithm change suspended a swath of Jewish Orthodox pearl dealing industry, or years-long bloodbath between two sellers of electric wheelchair batteries. But on the phone, she listens patiently as sellers rattle off their list of grievances. You've got to get them off the ledge, and one of the ways to do that is for them to get heard, Stine says. Amazon won't give you that. They're not going to talk to a human. She calls a scheme that got Planksy a dirty seller trick, and she's seen it before. As Amazon has escalated its war on fake reviews, sellers have realized that the most effective tactic is not buying them for yourself, but buying them for your competitors. The more obviously the fraud, the better. A handful of glowing testimonials, preferably in broken English, about unrelated products and written by a known review purveyor on Fiverr, can not only take out a competitor and allow you to move up a slot in Amazon search results, it can land your rival in a bewildering morass of Amazon's suspension system. Let's see. It's lit. Somebody bought your product, lit it on fire, took a picture, and told Amazon that your goods are explosive. And Stine's team had bad news. The only way back from suspension is to confess and repent, she says. Even if you don't think you've done anything wrong, Amazon doesn't like to see finger pointing. Amazon calls them appeals, which suggests that there's a possibility of having the verdict overturned. In reality, they're more like a plea bargain crossed with a business memo, the core of which is a plan of action, an explanation of how you plan on making things right, and to make things right, you need to admit you've done something wrong. So Planksy sat down with Stine and with Stine's team and looked for something, anything to confess to. In his appeal, he admitted to providing discounts for reviews before Amazon banned the practice, and to sending customers emails about printing out shooting targets that the algorithm might have mistaken for bribes. It was crazy, he says. I felt like I was in prison for a crime I didn't commit, and the only way out was to plead guilty. In a way, Planksy had it easy. He at least knew what he had to confess to, even if he hadn't done it. Many sellers can't even figure out what Amazon is accusing them of, and this is a common experience that a lot of Amazon sellers have, is Amazon sends you these vague emails, and you're kind of guessing at, like, what did I even do wrong? A suspension message will typically list an item along with a broad, tangentially related category of an infraction like used, sold as new. Understandably, sellers respond by sending invoices that show that their items are in fact new. Actually, Stine says the suspension usually has nothing to do with the item being used, but with something like a peeling label on the box. The thing Amazon wants you to fix is the buyer perception, Stine says. Just proving to Amazon that your goods are new is not good enough because Amazon wants you to address why buyers thought they were used. One seller described the typical process as Amazon saying, I'm putting you in jail, but not telling you what you did. Now give me a justification for why we should let you out and you won't do it again. The appeals process is so confounding that it's given rise to an entire industry of consultants like Stine. Chris McCabe, a former Amazon employee, set up shop in 2014. CJ Rosenbaum, an attorney in Long Beach, New York, now bills himself as the Amazon seller's lawyer with an amazing law library featuring Amazon Law 101, $95 on Amazon. I think I actually have his book. You know, I'm going to dip out. I got my books on the side of my desk here. Let me take a look. Let's see, what was this guy's name? That guy's name was Chris McCabe. Okay, no, or Rosenbaum. I think they addressed, did they talk about Rosenbaum? Chris McCabe. Oh, CJ Rosenbaum. Okay. So, I don't know if you guys can see this. This is actually, they gave this out at eCom Chicago. This is CJ Rosenbaum, Your Guide to Amazon Suspensions, 2017 and 2018 edition. And here's the guy right there. He was a speaker at the eCom Chicago event. So, it's interesting. I actually got that guy's book. Stine's company deals with about 100 suspensions a month and charges $2,500 per appeal, $5,000 if you want it expedited, which is in line with industry norms. It's a price many are willing to pay. It can be life or death for people, McCabe says. If they don't get their Amazon account back, they might be insolvent, laying off 10, 12, 14 people, maybe more. I've had people begging me for help. I've had people at their wits' end. I've had people crying. Much of Stine's work involves translating Amazon's cryptic suspension messages and then digging through every review, metric, and message in a seller's account just to find an infraction she needs to design a remedy for. Sitting at her workstation, she clicks around the seller interface like a mechanic, fiddling under the hood, talking mostly to herself. She looks at a warning message, Amazon mad. She sees a listing for dog toys. People complain they were too chewy for their dogs. This right there is going to trigger Amazon's freak-o-meter rule. The actual infraction can be as slight as the indictment is broad. Stine has a client whose listing for a rustic barnwood picture frame was deemed unsafe and taken down. It turned out the offense was a single customer that mentioned getting a splinter. The customer had actually given it 5 stars. The seller was allowed back when he promised to add wear gloves when installing to his listing. Another seller was suspended for Nike shoes that were not as described after he'd filed appeal after proving the shoes were genuine Nikes. Stine's team figured out the problem. Some buyers complained the shoes were too small. The seller was let back on after promising to add a line to the listing recommending customers wear thin socks. And here's another thing that the bad actors on Amazon have figured out. And they talked about this at eCom Chicago. The lawyer who spoke, as well as this woman, Stine, said there are certain words that will trigger Amazon's algorithm to pretty much instantly take your product down. So if somebody uses words like smoke, fire, hurt, injured, counterfeit, fake, knockoff, instantly one review will tank your listing just based off those words. That's what we call Amazon is a clear monopoly that is somehow allowed to destroy industry after industry. That's what we call speaking Amazon, Stine says. In my mind, I imagine a checklist and it doesn't even have to make sense. It's just that the previous appeals hadn't included all this important proactive step they were going to take to prevent the complaint that the shoe was too tight. J.C. Hewitt, whose law firm frequently works with Amazon sellers, calls the system's mandatory guilty pleas, arbitrary verdicts, and obscure language a Kafkaesque bureaucracy with bad writing. Inscrutable rulings emerge as if from a black box. The performance team, which handles suspensions, has no phone number. There's no one to ask for clarification. The only way to interact with them is by filing an appeal, and when it's rejected, sellers often have no idea why. Sellers can call another Amazon department, seller support, but those workers can't provide information about the performance team. They can only offer generic advice about what the seller might have done wrong. The secrecy can be so infuriating that sellers have traveled to Seattle or Amazon's London office to try to find a human, to no avail. One seller flew to Seattle from Chengdu, China, and lived out of a Honda Pilot he bought on Craigslist while wandering around Amazon's offices trying to find someone to hear his case. The receptionist gave him the same phone number for seller support he'd been trying for weeks. Kevin Harmon, who sells books and DVDs from his warehouse in Charlotte, North Carolina, called suspensions last July the worst month of his life. His account was suspended and a $20,000 in it frozen over a damaged Lilo and Stitch DVD and 9 other items. After laying off employees and starting to liquidate his inventory, he rallied against the company on Facebook. Amazon is a clear monopoly that is somehow being allowed to destroy industry after industry, he wrote. They don't crush you when you're small. They wait until you've got employees and lease obligations and business loans and warehouses full of products, and then they reveal they don't need you anymore. So the types of Amazon attacks are some of the more common ones. The 5-star bomb. A seller pays someone to write obviously fraudulent 5-star reviews for competitors' listings and hopes that Amazon cracks down. Hijacking. Sellers who have their own brand should have their listings to themselves, but they often battle rivals who have obtained or counterfeited their products. The next level move, hijack not just the product, but the entire brand. Defacement. Sellers armed with the accounts of Amazon distributors, sometimes legitimately, sometimes through the black market, can make all manner of changes to a rival's listings, from changing images to altering text to reclassifying a product into an irrelevant category like sex toys. Phony fire. Sellers will buy their rivals' products, light it on fire, and post pictures to the reviews claiming it exploded. Amazon is quick to suspend sellers for safety claims. Let's see, where were we? But ultimately, it wasn't the suspension that was most galling. It was the way Amazon kept responding with the same request for more information whenever he appealed. I was caught in some kind of AI gear, he says. In reality, there were likely humans reading Harmon's emails, but they're part of a highly automated bureaucracy, according to former Amazon employees. An algorithm flags sellers based on a range of metrics, customer complaints, number of returns, certain keywords used in reviews, and other more mysterious variables, and passes them to performance workers based in India, Costa Rica, and other locations. These workers choose between several pre-written blurbs to send to sellers. They may see what the actual problem is or the key item missing from an appeal, but they can't be more specific than the forms allow, according to Rachel Greer, who worked as a fraud investigator at Amazon before becoming a seller consultant. Now, if you guys are seeing a trend here, it's that everyone who works for Amazon leaves Amazon and goes off to start their own private business, helping Amazon sellers. It feels like a bot, but it's actually a human who is very frustrated about the fact that they have to work like that, she says. The performance workers' incentives favor rejection. They must process approximately one claim every 4 minutes, and reinstating someone who later gets suspended again counts against them. So here's what's really kind of fucked up about this system is if somebody does this to you one time, there's a chance they're going to come back and do it to you a second time, right? Now, if the Amazon associate or Amazon worker realizes that somebody has screwed you over and lets you back on, yet this person comes back and does it again, their performance metrics at work are going to be dinged because of this. So there's very little incentive, it seems, for Amazon employees to actually do the right thing and help sellers. When they fall behind, Stine says, they'll often punt by sending requests for more information, as Harmon experienced. Asked about complaints that the suspension process is harsh and confusing, Amazon responded with a statement saying the company supports the businesses that sell through its platform. In order to protect both customers and sellers, we have selling policies that all sellers agree to, and we take swift action against those who violate them, the company wrote. We have an appeals process where sellers can explain how they will prevent the violation from happening in the future, or let us know if they believe they were compliant. There are plenty of justified suspensions. The prospect of an easily accessible global market attracts counterfeiters, money launderers, and fencers of stolen goods. Stine had a client who was suspended for trying to sell hand grenades, and another who thought he'd found a deal of a lifetime buying bagfuls of children's costumes out of a warehouse in Salt Lake City, only to get suspended when the rightful owner reported the costumes as stolen. She got back on a technicality. The company had contacted the seller on Amazon platform, a violation in itself. A typical seller, she says, was more concerned about getting back on Amazon than about the fact that police might be waiting for them when they returned home to the U.S. from vacation. Amazon's ability to hide the chaos of its marketplace from consumers is part of what made the company successful early on, says Marketplace Pulse's Juzos, because I'm not even going to try to say that. Well, eBay is obviously a bazaar. Amazon looks like a traditional retailer. In reality, a growing share of Amazon is also an open marketplace, one with mechanics that foster both intense competition and retail-like experience. With fulfillment by Amazon, all sellers have to do is ship their goods to Amazon's warehouses. Amazon handles storage and delivery and bestows a prime checkmark on their listing, a promise of a speedy shipping and easy returns. Behind the scenes, sellers compete with each other on price and a wide range of other metrics, mostly having to do with customer satisfaction to win the buy box and become the default seller on the listing. Margins drop to zero so quickly on popular listings that sellers seek out greener, more obscure pastures, niche categories like microfiber car wash mitts or gas fireplace logs. Stine started playing this game in 2010. She was running a small public relations firm and needed an extra $1,500 a month to pay for tuition for her son who had special needs. So she turned to the decision-making process she learned from Tony Robbins' cassette, course 19 years earlier, when she grew tired of living in a basement in Queens and dating non-committal men and moved to Dallas. Visualize the solution. The answer turned out to be buying books from libraries and closeouts and reselling them on Amazon. She soon realized she could sell pretty much anything at all, so she hit up Targets armed with barcode scanners on her lanyard and a phone in her armband. She used an app to check prices on Amazon. She finds goods she could resell for a profit. She became, in the language of the industry, a scanner monkey. There are two types of sellers on Amazon. The first is resellers. Scanner monkeys like Stine, along with their cousins, the product diverters, reimporters, and gray market tycoons. They play a hidden but important role in the Amazon marketplace, the everything store. Brands that refuse to work with Amazon often find their products on the platform anyway through these back channels. A second type is the private label seller. Rather than compete with dozens of other sellers, all selling the same product on the same listing, they make their own brand, which gives them a listing of their own. Some of these sellers come up with original products and resemble traditional businesses, albeit based almost wholly on Amazon, which again is not ideal. But many simply slap a logo on a mix of trending goods sourced from China, creating an eclectic catalog of fidget spinners and cowboy boots, adult coloring books, and survival gear. The result has been Cambrian explosion of brands found only on Amazon, selling largely identical products. Recently, their ranks have been reinforced by yet another generation of sellers, these ones based in China with more direct access to factories. Now, let's hop over. Actually, you know what would probably be better than Coffee Grinder? How about let's do Firestarter. Magnesium Firestarter. Little bit of a different spin on it. Little bit of a different spin. But as you can see, you know, all these are essentially the same product. They might change up the color of the handle. They might slap a different name on it. Exact same product. Almost exact same product. Exact same product is there. Let's see here. So here's actually a Zippo brand. So I'm actually seeing some diversity of products here, but you know, this is kind of the same one. The Friendly Swede is a big private label seller. I've mentioned him on a lot of videos before. He has a lot of survival products, but a lot of other products. But I mean, as you can see here, we have the same products over and over, just under different brands. And I think this could eventually maybe be Amazon's downfall. Is eventually it kind of gets frustrating when you have 500 of the same product and they're the exact same product, but they just have different names on it. Which one do I buy? There's not enough diversity of products. But as you can see here, I mean, we're seeing the same products over and over and over, just with different names slapped on them. Though private label sellers still face competition from other sellers buying or counterfeiting their products and hopping on their listings, they are largely freed from fighting over the buy box. Instead, they find themselves competing in a new arena, Amazon's search rankings. About 70% of searches on Amazon are for generic products like running shoes or milk frother, rather than brands, and Amazon has made buying so easy that customers often purchase the first thing with Prime shipping they see. If a seller can game Amazon's algorithm to win a high spot for their brand, they can outsell household names. But search placement is everything. Greer says there's a common joke: we're the best place to bury a dead body on the 10th page of Amazon search results because nobody ever goes there. And I'm sure you guys can probably relate to this as buyers yourselves, right? Like, how many of you have gone deeper than page 1, page 2, page 3 looking for a product? Just as competition over the buy box spilled over into a proliferation of generic brands, the competition over search rank is creating its own unintended consequences. Sellers competing not on price and quality, but on who can best sabotage the listing of theirs. And if the saboteur is skilled enough in the ways of Amazon, they can trap the rival in the surreal limbo of Amazon court. Planksy had reported the fake 5-star reviews as soon as he'd gotten them, and after he was suspended, he played by Amazon's rules and confessed to everything that could possibly be considered review manipulation. But in the end, it wasn't enough. Several days after filing his appeal, he received an email saying he had been rejected. Amazon won't read the same appeal twice, so now Planksy has to find another infraction to confess to. Unable to think of anything and utterly desperate, he and Stine's team decided to email CEO Jeff Bezos, a last resort. Once you've gone to Jeff, there's nowhere else to go. Emailing the richest man in the world is actually the standard method of escalation an Amazon seller's appeal. It's called a Jeff bomb, or as Stine prefers, a Jeff letter. Dear Mr. Bezos, they wrote, we desperately need your help. And then this is exactly what I did. My piece of advice to anybody finding themselves in this situation, write a handwritten letter, right? Handwritten letters separate yourself from others. Anybody can open an Amazon appeal. Anybody can type a letter and send it out. But when something's handwritten, it's different. It's going to grab attention, and it shows you've put a lot of effort into it. This is how I finally got Amazon to release my $48,000. It's probably not Bezos reading the emails. I actually was contacted back by the executive offices. Though McCabe says that during his time at Amazon, he was forwarded several appeals with only a question mark written on them, a signal of Jeff Bezos' displeasure. Generally fortunate sellers will have a member of Bezos' staff take pity and respond. Planksy's Jeff letter was never answered, but after he'd sent it, a fellow Amazon seller at a local meetup gave him the name of someone high up in the company. He emailed them, and shortly afterwards he got his account back. Stine maintains that it was the seller letter that did it. All told, no wonder Stine maintains that, because she took $2,500 from him and didn't solve his problem. All told, he estimates his suspension cost him about $150,000 in sales. Stine is aware that the suspension system is often unfair and needlessly bewildering, but she has faith in the system overall. Sometimes she likens it to Darwinian evolution, or the way governments shape societies through taxation and penalties. Except in Amazon's case, the ultimate goal is a better buying experience. Something so good you'll never think of going to another brick and mortar store. The company, she says, has a God's eye view, and everyone it suspends is guilty of something, even if only out of naivety. She sees herself as doing Amazon's work, showing sellers how to reform their businesses to align with Amazon's way. Compliance, she is fond of saying, is the foundation of growth, but she's begun encountering more and more cases like Planksy's, one where sellers are innocent, even according to Amazon's strange rules. They've been framed. Recently promoted to Grandpa. You've been hijacked by mug pirates. John Harris knew selling on Amazon was a state of constant warfare, and he had taken defensive measures. He sold survival gear, fire starters, compasses, combination fire start compasses, which we just looked at, watches, paracord wristbands, and in the world of Amazon, his account was locked down bunker with a panic room. He had trademarked his wares and registered his brand with Amazon, giving him a streamlined method for booting hijackers off his listings. He'd even built his own software to instantly send out cease and desist letters the moment someone tried to steal his buy box. Typically, the prompt legal threats were enough to scare off competitors, but one September morning last year, he woke to see an interloper who had remained on his listings through the night. Strangely, Harris realized they had also found a way to steal his own seller name, Sharp Survival. His account had been transformed into a generic Seller123. He reported the imposter to Amazon as he'd done countless times before, but this time nothing happened. And this kind of goes to show, even if you spend the money to get trademarks, to get copyrights, to get patents, even if you do all this, you are still not immune from these problems. Over the following days, Harris came to realize that someone had been targeting him for almost a year, preparing an intricate trap. Well, he had trademarked his watch and registered brand, Dead End Survival, with Amazon. Harris hadn't trademarked the name of his Amazon seller account, Sharp Survival, so the interloper did just that, submitting to the patent office as evidence that he owned goods, a photo taken from Harris, Amazon's listings, including one of Harris's own hands lighting a fire using the clasp of his Survival watch. The hijacker then took that trademark to Amazon and registered it, giving him the power to kick Harris off his own listing and commanding his name. Let's see. All of a sudden, brands could take people down like that, Stine says, snapping her fingers. This was very, very, very well orchestrated and research, Harris said. A pseudonym he wanted to use in order to avoid further attacks from his rivals. From a customer's perspective, the scam was very seamless. The customers thought they were still buying stuff from us. Instead, according to court documents, customers began receiving shoddy knockoffs of Harris's survival gear and pillaring his products in their reviews. He sent dozens of emails and appeals to Amazon trying to explain the situation as he watched his wares fall in Amazon's search, only to be told he'd have to work things out with the rightful owner of the brand. Then came the retaliation. Tired of Harris's futile attacks, the imposter booted Harris off his own listings entirely, reporting him to Amazon for infringing on his own brand. We consider allegations of intellectual property infringement a serious matter, warned an email from Amazon. And I had this happen to me as well. I was private labeling hoverboard parts, and I had somebody get me kicked off my own brand that I had trademarked. Attacks like this are increasingly common on Amazon. More customers and more sellers mean more competition for the top search result and more to gain by winning it. There may be 500 million products on the platform, but there are so many high search slots and Amazon bestseller badges. Last year, only about 20,000 sellers, or 0.3%, had more than $1 million in sales, which is at the point which Kazunkas says it becomes a viable full-time business, where people used to mostly game Amazon's platform to rank higher. Stine says now they game it to take each other out. Now, here's another interesting thing to point out. Now, we have $1 million sellers on Amazon, right? But only 0.3% of sellers make over $1 million. So do you think some of these YouTubers selling courses on Amazon might be full of shit and might be not doing over $1 million or multiple millions of dollars in sales? I would say that's probably pretty likely. Sexual child-proof door lock. Your goods have been reclassified as sex toys. In the intensely competitive world that Amazon has built, man, this is a long article. I'm going to be hoarse by the end of this. Any efforts by the company to clean up seller misbehavior are quickly turned into weapons for sellers to wield against each other. The crackdown on fake 5-star reviews begat the 5-star bomb Planksy was hit with. After hoverboards started exploding in 2016, Amazon became much more vigilant about safety claims. Sellers started buying others' products and setting them on fire and posting photos in the reviews. A scheme that ensnared Harris made use of a program called Brand Registry, which Amazon overhauled last year to give companies more effective ways to guard against counterfeiting. Any seller with a trademark can register their brand with Amazon and get tools for quickly taking down sellers they claim are infringing. All of a sudden, brands could take people down like that, Stine says, snapping her fingers. I don't know why Amazon naively thought that was all they would do, that people wouldn't use it to take down their enemies. Scammers have found ways to effectively weaponize Amazon's anti-counterfeiting program. Attacks have become so widespread that they've even pulled in the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, which recently warned people that people were making unauthorized changes through its electronic filing system, likely a part of a scheme to register the marks of others on third-party brand registries. Scammers had begun swapping out email addresses on their rivals' trademark files, which can be done without a password, which is pretty scary, and that's one of the things that they really stressed at the eCom Chicago event and that Stine was talking about, and using the email to register their competitor's brand with Amazon, gaining control of their listings. As Harris encountered, Amazon appears not to check whether a listing belongs to a brand already enrolled in brand registry. Stine has a client who trademarked their party supply brand and registered it with Amazon, only to have a rival change their trademark file register with Amazon and hijack their listings for socks, which had things like, if you can read this, bring coffee, written on the soles. Asked about seller attacks, Amazon said bad actors represent a small fraction of the activity on the site and that the company uses machine learning and other tools to stop them. Regarding the brand registry attacks, Amazon said it is working closely with brands, the USPTO, and others to continue to strengthen the protections and stay ahead of these bad actors. So let's see, Amazon's safe shopping on Amazon. According to Stine, look out for newly launched sellers, especially if the account hasn't been around for at least 6 months. They could be a pop-up that will vanish after you order. Long shipping times. If a product will take several weeks to ship without a clear reason, it's a sign the seller could be a drop shipper or that they plan to take the money and run. An unusually high number of reviews. Reviews are typically 1 to 2% of actual sales, Stine says. So unless a product has been around for years or is a huge seller, it's unlikely to have thousands of real ones. Also make sure that the reviews are about the product listed. Some sellers find abandoned listings and repurpose them, and this is actually a really effective strategy on Amazon. If you find a listing that somebody else built up and abandoned, you can take over that listing and then transition it into your product and seem like you're more established and rank higher in search. And then lastly, details that seem a little off. Know what product you're buying is supposed to look like, especially if it's a popular toy, luxury good, or easy to manufacture commodity. Double check when it arrives. These schemes really require the mind of someone whose depravity knows no bounds, says Brad Tucker, who handles most of the infringement claims for Stine. His previous job was investigating credit card fraud. The schemes he's seen on Amazon are more devious and more creative. One of his recent favorites involved a mug that read, recently promoted to Grandpa. Someone reported the main photo of the mug as copyright infringement, causing it to be taken down, and an image of a grandpa in a rocker to become the main image, which was the violation of another Amazon policy that doesn't allow images without a white background, and the listing fell into Amazon search results. The mug pirate made their own listing with the original image, priced slightly higher. Brad thinks the plan was to fill any orders from the demoted listing, netting a couple dollars in profit. There are more subtle methods of sabotage as well. Sellers will sometimes buy Google ads for their competitors for unrelated products, say a dog food ad linking to a shampoo listing, so that Amazon's algorithm sees the rate of clicks converting to sales drop and automatically demotes their product. They will go on the black market and purchase or rent seller accounts with special editing privileges and use them to change the color or description of their rivals' products so that they get suspended when far too many customers complain about the item being not as described. They will exile their competitors' listings to an unrelated category, say move a product with a bestseller badge in the office category to lawn care, taking the badge for themselves. They took a kid's toy made for 6 to 12-year-olds and they changed it to a sex toy. One outraged seller told me, "This is a common move. Amazon hides products in that category unless the customer clicks a button saying they're over 18. Another seller who had been battling counterfeiters of his child-proof locks and outlet covers received a threat in Chinese saying that, well, it's hard to build a listing like his. It would be easy to destroy. Be cautious, the message warned. Later, he too was banished to sex toys. It's suppressed from search results unless you literally search for sexual child-proof door lock," he says. He had no sales. The viciousness of competition can be surprising given the items being fought over, but Amazon's scale changes the traditional dynamics of counterfeiting. Rather than knock off a luxury good, it can be lucrative to go after a mundane commodity people buy every day without too much thought. USB cables, cutlery organizers, various extruded plastic things. Stine has a client whose shoe tree business was barraged with phony infringement claims, hijackings, and threatening calls that she ended up referring to the FBI. Surveying crib cushions and safety locks of Amazon's baby category, Stine sees a world of chaos and conflict. All these sweet little products are definitely potential targets, she says. We tell people whenever you're successful on Amazon, you have a target on your back, and boy, is that true. Evil deeds must be returned in kind. Your cartoon unicorn headband smartphones have been threatened. Paul Miller has built a good business selling padded over-ear headphones and has nothing but praise for Amazon, which he says rescued him after his restaurant business went under. Nevertheless, he must constantly battle phony infringement claims and threats. He lost $10,000 when he was taken out for infringement right before Prime Day, which along with Black Friday always sees a surge in attacks. Recently, Miller reported an imposter for infringing on his cartoon unicorn headband headphones and was hit with a retaliatory infringement claim, citing an unrelated patent for a plush unicorn toy. Our technical team will return a devastating blow to cozy phones, warned a message in Chinese. The Amazon circle is very small. Evil deeds must be returned in kind. Recently, the fierce competition of Amazon's marketplace has given rise to outright bribery. In September, the Wall Street Journal reported that Amazon was investigating employees in the U.S. and China for leaking internal data to sellers in exchange for bribes. A month later, the paper reported that one employee had been fired and customers who had their emails leaked had been notified. This is what we kind of referred to earlier in the article. The Verge has screenshots of WeChat posts offering troves of Amazon data and spoken with sellers who have encountered brokers offering internal access. Some after Amazon announced it had fired the employee. In one conversation viewed by The Verge, sellers had shared what appeared to be customer emails and phone numbers valuable to sellers as a way of contacting shoppers, trying to get them to change their reviews. Several price lists viewed by The Verge included offers of customer contact information and data on their orders, new seller accounts, and data on other sellers. Another offer of internal reports advertised itself with the promise of spy on your competitors. That's the kind of information Amazon will never give you and would be worth its weight in gold, Stine says after viewing the price list. It's how a seller might end up singling out a particular pair of novelty socks as a lucrative candidate for hijacking. They'll get this data and it will be their target list. The Verge has also spoken with a broker promising guaranteed reinstatement in 3 working days through contacts on the performance team, and viewed screenshots of the interface the performance team uses while suspending and reinstating sellers. Stine has heard rumors of sellers paying thousands of dollars to get it reinstated instantly, something that could happen only with intervention from somebody inside of the company. Asked about the apparent market and internal data and reinstatements, Amazon responded with a statement saying the company has a strict code of conduct for employees and audits access to information. We have zero tolerance for abuse of our system, and if we find bad actors who engage in this behavior, we will take swift action against them, including terminating their seller accounts, deleting reviews, withholding funds, and taking legal action, the company wrote. This black market is the only thing consultants like Stine and McCabe can't compete with. If you're a seller, why wouldn't you just want to pay a lot of money if someone can guarantee I will have you back up by tomorrow? Most sellers would pay almost anything, Stine says. We can't promise that. Whew, this article is fucking long, man. Of the 24 sellers I spoke with, all of them described their time in suspension court as nightmarish and said they plan to get back to selling on Amazon as soon as they could. Not being on Amazon doesn't feel like an option, Planksy says. His listings have dropped in search rank during his time offline. To regain his place, he's buying Amazon ads. The trap Harris had been caught in was too sophisticated to resolve with Amazon, and Stine referred him to an army prosecutor turned patent attorney named Jeff Berlowski based in Atlanta. Berlowski stumbled into the world of Amazon after speaking at a seller conference and now estimates that Amazon represents 80% of his practice. He'd actually encountered Harris's hijacker before, a man named Georgie Marson who lives in Toronto and has used a similar strategy to steal listings of a shoehorn seller in Passaic, New Jersey, and a seller of magic tricks in Brandon, South Dakota. Shoe paraphernalia, for whatever reason, seems to be a favorite target of the Amazon underworld, so maybe you want to stay away from shoe stuff. In May, the District Court of Northern Georgia ordered a temporary restraining order forbidding Masson from selling the knockoff watches and fire starters, which he ignored. Amazon, too, would only act on a final court order. On October 31st, more than a year after Harris's listings were first hijacked, the court ordered a default judgment against Marson, awarding Harris $2 million in statutory damages. Harris says he can once again sell on his listings, but Amazon won't re-register his brand until the patent office updates, so he's had to deal with hijackers. He has little hope of recovering the damages. Marson did not respond to repeat requests for comment sent to the emails listed on his trademark applications to his profile on LinkedIn, and an email to the address listed on the site for Marson Warehouse, a bare bones page with photos of Harris and others' goods for today's fast-paced digital world. Bounce. So the emails bounce back. The site now appears to be offline. For most sellers and a growing number of traditional businesses, Amazon is so big, so much of the default people go to shop there that they find ways to tolerate constant sabotage as just another cost of doing business. In a sense, the chaos of the platform fuels its own growth. The only way to get the tools you need to police your brand on Amazon is to join, as Nike did last year. After years of resistance, when sellers get in trouble for customer complaints or attacks from counterfeiters, the solution is to more fully meld with Amazon, to enroll in its fulfillment program, to purchase Amazon's labels, to make sure product isn't being diverted, or even to make their brand exclusive to Amazon, which brings special protections. Many sellers come to Amazon looking for a new distribution channel for their business or a way to jumpstart their company, but they find that Amazon has become their advertising firm and their storefront, their warehouse and their shipper. For some, it's their bank and the intermediary that collects sales taxes. It makes rules and enforces them. It's an arrangement that suits Amazon, which is able to outsource the costs of managing inventory and vendor relationships. Revenue and seller commissions and other fees is growing far faster than Amazon's online sales overall, with the company taking in about $19 billion in the first half of this year, a 41% increase over the same period the year before, and representing about 18% of the company's total revenue. Now, this is kind of something troubling with Amazon. Amazon is rolling out this program called Amazon One Vendor, and Amazon got into a dispute with PopSockets over this. And kind of how what's happening is Amazon told PopSockets, you can't sell your own product on Amazon. If you want to sell on Amazon, you have to sell through us. So then PopSockets found a third-party distribution company who bought the products off of PopSockets and went to sell those products on Amazon. Amazon said they can't sell them either. So Amazon essentially told PopSockets, if you want your products being sold on our site, they're going to have to go through us. The real kind of kick in the ass is that Amazon would still let third-party people like you and me sell the products out of their basement. Maybe they're counterfeit, maybe they're not. But they won't actually sell the company or authorized resellers of the company to sell their own products. So Amazon is going the direction of essentially forcing brands and forcing companies to sell on their platform. Let's see, where antitrust concerns have arisen. They chiefly concerned Amazon's practice of competing against other sellers with its own brands. It's harder for regulation to grasp a company that, rather than monopolizing a market, has become the market themselves. As for Stine, business is booming, and she says Amazon has been a force for good in her life. She uses it constantly for everything from groceries to appliances. As we're speaking, she gets a Kindle alert for a new James Peterson novel. Selling on its platform got her out of a tight spot. She published books on Amazon using Amazon seller tools. Now she's built a business interpreting its rules and systems, and she's flying around the world to speak at gatherings of Amazon sellers. She thinks the company will only grow, that it will expand its business supply marketplace, providing coffee to offices and machinery to factories, and that one day we'll wake up and it will be like Demolition Man, Stine says, a sci-fi fan where Sylvester Stallone's character comes out of hibernation to find every restaurant is Taco Bell. I don't remember that movie. I'll have to check that out. She recently learned that Amazon may make seller consultants like her part of the site. She doesn't know exactly what it will look like yet. Maybe a list of Amazon approved finance, advertising, and other support services on the seller dashboard, but she's eager to join. She's done several interviews explaining her business already, even flying to Seattle of her own volition to meet with Amazon representatives. She's also wary. She knows how Amazon works, and she's given the company a lot of data about her business. I figure I'm going to get everything I can out of it while the getting's good, she says, reaching for another sci-fi reference. I mean, it's like the Borg. Someday we will all be assimilated. That's actually kind of scary and kind of depressing. But that is the article. I know it was a long read. If you stuck with me till the end, thanks for hanging with me. But some troubling shit there, man. Wow. You know, definitely don't make Amazon something that you're reliant on. Have other sales channels. Be selling on eBay and Etsy and Zulily and whatever other platform you can. Have your own Shopify store. So if you guys have run into similar problems, if you guys have been victims of similar things, I'd love to hear your stories. Go ahead and drop them in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed, smash that subscribe button down below. And until next time, guys, Rules for Rebels signing out.